Hi again, I'm Kortsch of the Monetary Trust Initiative, and this is the third video on infrastructure without debt. Let me do just a very short recap. So the first one, I dealt with the four issues that I want to tie in together with most people think have nothing to do with each other, which is infrastructure, our whole monetary system, how it works, the current rate of inflation, or not, and the size of the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve Bank. Then in the previous video, what we looked at is the needed awareness, where I was saying is, you know, it's kind of like our body. Until things don't work right, we don't think much about it. And then the fact that this is a bipartisan issue. This is both sides of the aisle say this is really important, but the issue is funding. And that's really what this whole series is all about. I want to have just one video on the state of our infrastructure, which is this one. And as I've said before, the material I'm going to use is from the American Society of Civil Engineers, the ASCE. And by the way, you can get all the information on their website. It's fantastic. So it's asce.org, and then click on there and go to the report card, and you'll see what it's all about. Well, here you see a snapshot of that report card, and up in the top corner you see the big letter D+. Well, that's not a passing grade. At least when I went to school, that was not a passing grade. And I think that's a reflection of where we are at in our infrastructure. You notice below that, it says what we need is 3.6 trillion. Now, a good amount of that has already been budgeted. I'm going to mention that in just a few minutes. But over on this side, you'll see the 16 categories, which I read to you in the last video. And what the report card says is the state of each one of them. And if you want, you can stop, you can have a look at it, or go on their website and you'll see it's really excellent, the information that they have. Let me show you a short video that they put together, and it only refers to roads and bridges. If I were to show a video on each of the other 15 portions of our infrastructure, I think we'd all crazy and none of us would watch it. So here's that short clip.
Roads and bridges are vital to the country. The ability to freely move goods, services, and people across our nation directly contributes to our economic place in the world.
There's no question we're not making adequate investments in our transportation infrastructure. It's more expensive today to maintain what we have than it was to build it originally.
We're still driving on roads that my grandparents paid for and built. Our average bridge age is 75 years. Well, they were built to be 50-year bridges. One bridge that carries 90,000 cars a day. The nearest detour is an 11-mile detour. So if that bridge had to shut down, we'd be looking at 1 million miles a day of extra traffic while that bridge was shut down and being rebuilt.
The majority of our population lives in metropolitan areas, so our highways are greatly congested.
When you have congestion problems, time is money. And that's money lost to that business that is trying to get their product to the marketplace. Same thing for a business person whose time is very valuable.
We all work somewhere, and all of those jobs are dependent on that infrastructure working for us.
We need to make some more investments for the future. We have to look at the whole problem.
We have been working for many, many years, over a decade, in a realignment of our major Interstate I-40, to bring down the current long structure of a bridge down to street level, to turn that into a boulevard. And of course, the other side of that coin is if you don't invest in your infrastructure, and you do have bad roads, you do have bad bridges, it doesn't help you with economic development.
Maintenance is a very important part of our roads and our bridges. Maintenance can extend the life of our roads and bridges, and lack of maintenance can actually shorten the life of these structures.
It's important that a state has a plan of action, has timetables, has measurable results, puts the funding behind it to take care of their infrastructure.
This is an investment for us and your children and your grandchildren, because that's what your grandparents did and your parents did. Investing in infrastructure is extremely important if we want to continue to be economically successful.
Infrastructure is vitally important to our economy. We have to be able to move people and to move goods, and if we're unable to do that, then our state will suffer as well as our nation.
Okay, let's go back to that slide. So here it is again, the one I showed you previously. You'll notice the total amount of spending that is needed is 3.6 trillion. All right, but just by way of explanation, that's for the next, well, that's through until 2020, okay? A portion of that has already been allocated. Here's a different slide from the ASCE, and you'll see the breakdown for all the different sections that are needed. Again, that's too much detail. Let me walk you through it. The total is 3.6 trillion, but of that, the highlighted, you'll see 2 trillion, I mean, I'm using round numbers here, have already been allocated to be paid through taxes and bonds that are currently being planned. Well, that's good. We need that. But there's a gap of 1.6 trillion. And that's what I want us to concentrate on. You see, currently, there appears to be no way of sourcing those funds. And that's the point of this video. If we do not do this, the American Society of Civil Engineers says we're going to lose 3.5 million jobs by 2020. We don't want to do that. There's ways of doing this. All right. Talk about broad brushstrokes. I feel really bad talking about a whole country and the needed infrastructure in just these few minutes, but I don't know what else to do. All right? So the next video, we're going to look at the monetary system and why it is relevant to this whole issue. Thank you again. I'm Kortsch, the Monetary Trust Initiative.